Well, today, Donald Trump retreated and surrendered twice. Once in his trade war and once again in the United States Senate. We reported on this program last night that Donald Trump's increasing political weakness had made it impossible for him to get enough votes in the Senate to confirm his choice to be the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia. And today, Donald Trump surrendered and withdrew his choice for confirmation to that position. And while he was at it, Donald Trump admitted, in effect, that he's just too old and too weak to do his job.
I can only lift that little phone so many times in a day.
That's how Donald Trump explained his inability to get the 50 votes he needs from Republican senators, plus the vice president, to achieve that Senate confirmation. And you know, he only had to make one phone call to get that nomination through the Senate. That would be a phone call to Republican Senator Thom Tillis on the Senate Judiciary Committee, who publicly came out and defied Donald Trump, as we reported to you here last night. Because Donald Trump is now so politically weak among Republicans in the United States Senate, Thom Tillis said no publicly. I will not vote for Donald Trump's choice. And today, Donald Trump just publicly and meekly surrendered to Thom Tillis, to that one Republican senator who stood in his way, with Donald Trump saying, I can only lift that little phone so many times in a day. The single stupidest explanation a president has ever given for being unable to achieve a Senate confirmation. Today, Joe Biden appeared on The View for a full hour, taking all questions, and was always smart, sometimes wise, and always made perfect sense for the full hour, the way you would expect a president to do. Joe Biden was dignified for the full hour. Joe Biden was indeed presidential for the full hour. Imagine, if you will, Joe Biden in his presidency explaining his failure to win a vote in Congress by saying, I can only lift that little phone so many times in a day. Imagine the screaming from the White House press corps if Joe Biden had ever said anything like that. By the end of the day, Donald Trump had come up with a truly preposterous temporary appointment to that same position where he cannot win a Senate confirmation. He actually chose Fox host 73-year-old Jeanine Pirro to serve as the acting U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, where she will be allowed to serve as an acting U.S. Attorney for 120 days maximum and cannot serve one day longer without being confirmed by the Senate, which would never happen in her case. Here's just a sample of the thinking of Donald Trump's temporary substitute for U.S. Attorney, acting U.S. Attorney in the District of Columbia.
I want Joe Biden to issue a travel alert to the world. None of you are coming here anymore. We're done with everybody. There is a cleansing needed in our FBI and Department of Justice. It needs to be cleansed of individuals who should not just be fired, but who need to be taken out in handcuffs.
Jeanine Pirro, you can safely assume, will not take a single person out of the FBI headquarters or Justice Department in handcuffs during her temporary tenure. Donald Trump's other big retreat was on the world stage today. The Wall Street Journal describes it in this headline: Trump stages a trade war retreat. The Wall Street Journal said Republicans want to pretend this retreat is genius at work. Nobel Prize-winning economist Paul Krugman writes, this will be smoke and mirrors, an attempt to persuade the gullible that Trump's tariffs are actually working. We can be sure of one thing. It won't lead to any significant opening of the British market to U.S. goods. Why? Because that market was already wide open before Trump stomped in. The most important thing to understand about Trump's trade war is that it's an attempt to solve a problem that only exists in his imagination. Trump's tariffs are a huge destructive attempt to fix something that wasn't broken. Unlike China, the United Kingdom is one of those countries that actually buys more from the United States than the United States buys from the United Kingdom. That's who Donald Trump announced some kind of agreement with today. Donald Trump tried to stress today how important it is to get a trade agreement with such a big trading partner as the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom was once the biggest economy in the world, but that was a very long time ago. And now the United Kingdom is a smaller economy than California. And so Donald Trump has agreed not to impose his illegal tariff of 25% on British cars imported into the United States. And you will not be surprised to know that the only actual British car maker that Donald Trump repeatedly mentioned when discussing British cars today was the kind that he used to ride around New York City in, Rolls-Royce. Of the 14 million cars sold in the United States in a year, Rolls-Royce accounts for 1,765. It is the most insignificant imported product into the United States that you could possibly think of. But that car dominated Donald Trump's thinking today.
I mean, unless somebody shows me that there's another kind of a car that's comparable to a Rolls-Royce, then there aren't too many. This is a good commercial for Rolls-Royce, but they're going to order a lot of cars.
Mr. President, I wonder whether you'd like to buy.
I mean, well, the last time this happened, they ended up.
I would be happy to suggest a discount, obviously a very modest discount. We have to protect our profit margins.
I've had many of them, actually.
That's right. He said many of them. The gaudiest New York vulgarian of our lifetimes used to ride around New York City in a Rolls-Royce before he decided, as a politician, that no one should ever buy a foreign car. As usual, Donald Trump demonstrated in his announcement of a return to almost normal trading status with the United Kingdom that he has no idea what he's talking about, or better put, he has no idea what he's asked about. Listen to Donald Trump's answer about non-market barriers to trade and see if there's the slightest hint that he knows what that means.
On the non-market barriers, how did you get the UK to bend, and what was the 11th hour deal or ask?
Well, I think it was really just a part of the overall. I mean, they have so many things that are so good for them. It's going to be so good for the country. And that was sort of easy. It wasn't, we had non-market, I call it non-market or non-monetary trade barriers. And we had quite a few of them, not nearly as bad as some countries. Some countries have, you know, they have virtually no tariff, but the rest of it is so brutal you can't do business with them, right? So it's a very important question, actually. No, I think the overall deal just worked out very well from their standpoint. They were willing to give that in order to get other things. And you might want to speak to that, Mr. Ambassador.
That's right. When you have no idea what the question is about, you turn to the British ambassador and you say, you might want to speak to that, Mr. Ambassador. Donald Trump just said there's quite a few of them, but he never said what they are. He never identified even one. So Donald Trump spent the day trying to protect Rolls-Royce. And he did protect the market for Rolls-Royce in the United States. The American automobile industry, though, is disturbed that Donald Trump is more concerned with his friends in the United States being able to buy Rolls-Royces at their usual price instead of the survival of American automobile manufacturers. Today, the big three U.S. automakers issued a statement saying they are disappointed. Quote, the U.S. automotive industry is highly integrated with Canada and Mexico. The same is not true for the United States and United Kingdom. We are disappointed that the administration prioritized the UK ahead of our North American partners. Under this deal, it will now be cheaper to import a UK vehicle with very little U.S. content than a USMCA compliant vehicle from Mexico or Canada that is half American parts. This hurts American automakers, suppliers, and auto workers. We hope this preferential access for UK vehicles over North American ones does not set a precedent for future negotiations with Asian and European competitors. And there you have it. British cars imported to the United States as of today have been given a huge advantage over American-made cars by Donald Trump's unilateral manipulation of his own illegal tariffs. Donald Trump said that what was announced in the Oval Office today is a trade deal. That is a lie. There is no trade deal with the United Kingdom because of what happened in the Oval Office today. It is simply a rogue president violating American law on tariffs, declaring that he is going to violate that law in a different direction when it comes to the United Kingdom, and only the United Kingdom. There are a number of solid lawsuits out there in federal courts tonight claiming harm from Donald Trump's tariffs to American importers and arguing to the courts that Donald Trump's tariffs are illegal and unconstitutional. And the United Kingdom knows this. They know that nothing will be written into American law that they have discussed with Trump negotiators. They also know that federal courts could completely throw out everything that Donald Trump's team has agreed to because they do not have the legal authority to agree to it. Only Congress could make what Donald Trump is talking about the actual trade law of the United States. And nothing agreed to by the White House on international trade can ever become law, can ever be written into law without the approval of Congress. The stock market very much approved of Donald Trump's retreat today. The market was up and will probably be able to stay up on the now well-earned belief and expectation that Donald Trump will continue to surrender in so-called trade negotiations and continue to dramatically reduce or eliminate the illegal tariffs he has been threatening to impose. Donald Trump has gotten no concessions from China since launching his trade war against China, zero. And the New York Post is reporting tonight that Donald Trump is already planning to drop his illegal tariff against China from 145% to 50% next week when Trump administration officials will be meeting with Chinese officials in Switzerland. The Chinese officials reading that information in the American press about Donald Trump already caving to them before they've even arrived in Switzerland and said a word is no doubt very encouraging to the Chinese negotiating team. Donald Trump is rightly seen as the confused, economically illiterate clown at the center of his own trade war, who has become the most unpopular president in the first 100 days of his presidency in the history of presidential polling. In The Atlantic, Michael Schulman writes about what that will mean in the next week's talks in Switzerland with China. Quote, Trump's negotiating position will be the weaker one. Already in recent months, U.S. policy has appeared to vacillate, its strategy and goals uncertain, while Chinese leader Xi Jinping has held fast, presented an image of strength, and kept his larger geopolitical goals in focus. China has taken the opportunity of the chaos of Trump's trade policy to draw other countries, including American allies, closer to itself. The longer this standoff has persisted, the more Trump has signaled that he's the one who badly needs a trade deal. Just days ahead of talks with China, Trump's goals remain unclear. Beijing's far more consistent position has been that China will not bow to American pressure and that Washington must act to resolve the crisis it started. Trump's tariffs have given Xi an opportunity to portray himself as the more responsible and reliable statesman, and that is the easiest thing any head of state has ever tried to do, portray himself as more responsible and reliable than Donald Trump. The people standing around Donald Trump in the Oval Office today, with the exception of the British ambassador to the United States, have all made a commitment, an oath of office of sorts, to publicly lie for Donald Trump about international trade, and in J.D. Vance's case, about anything and everything. They have all implicitly taken an oath to never use one of their powers as members of the cabinet, and that is invoke the 25th Amendment along with the vice president to remove the president from office and install the vice president as acting president due to the president's inability to serve. Donald Trump chose a cabinet that really is 25th Amendment proof. They would never dare to even consider using the 25th Amendment against Donald Trump, no matter what he does. And they demonstrate their fealty to Donald Trump in the most perverse ways in the history of presidential cabinets. The rodeo clown of the Trump cabinet, Howard Lutnick, who has no experience in government and apparently no experience in decency, debased himself once again today, this time not with the stupidest words ever spoken by a Commerce Secretary about tariffs. He does that every day. This time it was with a goofy guffaw, bending over, laughing, and clapping when Donald Trump, in a Trumpian ramble reeking of dementia, called the first and only Jewish leader of the United States Senate a Palestinian. The Jewish Secretary of Commerce decided he's the one who should laugh the very loudest at that. Howard Lutnick decided he should have the biggest reaction to that, bigger even than J.D. Vance's smile. Howard Lutnick decided calling Chuck Schumer a Palestinian is something that he wants to declare to the world is bend over, laughing and clapping funny.
They have Trump derangement syndrome. You know, Senator Schumer's become a Palestinian. Welcome. I don't know when they're going to give him the ceremony, whatever the ceremony may be. But it's terrible what's happened to the Democrats.
Why? Why is Howard Lutnick laughing? Most of the people standing behind Donald Trump didn't laugh. Donald Trump has said it before. Donald Trump has been attacked for saying it before. Chuck Schumer correctly was outraged by Donald Trump calling him a Palestinian several weeks ago. It certainly wasn't the shock of the new that Howard Lutnick was spontaneously laughing at. Howard Lutnick is from Long Island. Howard Lutnick has no doubt over the course of his life heard a lot of nasty jokes directed at Jewish people that he doesn't like. It may be that Howard Lutnick thinks that any time a line includes the word Palestinian, that is somehow funny. I don't know. I don't know what he thinks, because it is inexplicable that a person would laugh at that statement. No one in that room today praised Donald Trump more than Howard Lutnick. Why? Why? That's what Howard Lutnick thinks he has to do. He thinks he's in a competition with everyone else in the cabinet in praising Donald Trump. And he is the most pathetic and buffoonish court jester in the history of the American presidential cabinet. Howard Lutnick will go about his business doing public interviews in friendly venues, and he will never be asked, why did you laugh at that? He will be allowed to lie about tariffs everywhere he goes on television to his friendly interviewers, and he will never be asked, why did you laugh at Donald Trump saying Senator Schumer's become a Palestinian? We don't have any questions for Donald Trump about a moment like that, because we know the man's brain is broken and full of poison and always has been. He is a hateful hunk of stupidity and bigotry sitting in that chair. The question for Howard Lutnick is, what is wrong with you? The question for Howard Lutnick is, have you no decency?